servers 2.0, and it was very fun.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to be in the middle yet, but I was thinking like KOTM in the set in between two black holes. So if you're fighting in KOTM and
Yeah,
you go too
something.
far, it may pull you in.
Yeah, something that you can lose your ship, but you have a good reward doing that. But if you fly too much away or you fight too much away or something, you're fuck.
Yeah.
One thing I remember that we did on the another server called Rebuild Game was a a planet, very small planet, and on each side there was two sun, but the sun have its own gravity, like very far away. So the planet has its own gravity, and also the two sun have their own gravity, and we try to mine on the planet. And because there was sun on the side, like all gravity was going everywhere from each side, it was very difficult to fly, but very like fun because it was very difficult.
Yeah, we did something like that in one of our other iterations. Uh, Gravity went pulling from multiple directions, uh, smashing people against rocks because when it
Yeah,
shifts
yeah,
randomly. Uh, but we'll see that didn't have a lot of positive feedback when we did that
like
because
the Badlands should be like something like that. Like gravity cannot be. It's an impossible place to fly.
yeah. All right. Well, we'll wait like 2 more minutes and then I'm just gonna get started so I can go back to bed. I'm sure Esde's recording this.
I'm going to put my mic on mute so I can hear you correctly. My kid is with me today.
Okay, no problem. All right, we're gonna get started. All right. Uh, all right, guys. So one thing in this next iteration is I want to kind of make small grids viable again, and I also want to um, have like more armed combat where you're not in a ship per se. You're more like a person with a rifle on a planet shooting stuff. And then we bring in some more, you know, sci-fi oriented guns and stuff that you could shoot, like phaser rifles and all that stuff. So one of the things that I wanted to do was uh, so we've selected a planet.
You guys.
Hey,
Yeah, why can't I hear? Sorry, guys, a little technical difficulty.
no worries. Trayland. All right, so good old Trayland. This is a really nice planet. This is gonna be our new feature planet that is gonna have different content on it. So if you look at this planet, guys, you guys can see my stream, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of this is kind of, there's no big ridges. There's little like hills, right? But there's no like massive cliffs and stuff. It's mainly flat until you get to one of these craters.
Hey guys, sorry to be the dummy in the group, but how do I see your screen, Sark?
Oh, if you click on,
Sark's name and then watch stream.
yeah, that's it.
I couldn't hear.
Oh, there's a little picture like on the left side bottom. There should be a little button that says like watch stream.
Sorry,
Uh,
that was me.
did you get it?
Not yet, but continue on and I'll sort it out.
Okay. Uh, yeah. So, anyways, there's these little craters, right, which will give some interesting gameplay. So what I was thinking is this world is going to be a rover world where only rovers can traverse the entire planet. If you had a large grid and you try to land it, there's a dead zone. So basically, your ship will turn off while you're trying to land, and gravity will pull you in, and you'll die. So basically, there's no way to bring a large grid in here. And even if you did manage to bring one in with like, what's it called? With parachutes, it would still have your main things turned off, like your thrusters and stuff. So you're never going to go anywhere. So, um, and what we wanted to do here was have some sort of fun buggy style combat. So, have you guys ever watched Ad Astra?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the moon scene on Ad Astra, where they're like shooting each other and stuff, and they're traversing. Let me see if I can put it in the chat. There's a little YouTube link of the Ad Astra. So that's the kind of look we were going for. Um, and then you would obviously, because only so large grid cannot enter this planet at all. Only small grid. And small grid, there'll be a section I envision of this planet that is rover only. So if you have a small grid and you go to the rover only zone, you basically will lose your ship. Like it'll depower and you'll just drop out of the sky. Dead zone. So that will control who brings what and where, and then we can hold kind of cool events and stuff, right? Like dirt buggy derby, like no turreted weapons. You and your buddy gotta jump on the make a grid, that's maneuverable, and then you gotta try to blow up other ships. One guy drives, one guy shoots, type thing. Um, I thought that would be something interesting. But after you watch the video that I just sent, and get an idea of that, let me know if that is something that you think people would like.
Did you
Uh,
put the video in the chat somewhere?
yeah, in the town hall text chat or voice text chat. Was that Bob?
Yeah.
There we go. I added you, Bob. Yeah, fairly quickly when you watch it, like you get the idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that'd bring a different element of gameplay. um, normally when you go to a server, they either it's a rover world, like a server itself. They don't have a server that you could do a lot of like multiple things. So I thought incorporating a rover world, small grid and rover world, having different challenges on that world, which would give you different things to kind of progress. It would create more content that way. Okay. Right. So, in addition to that, I wanted to create some additional blocks. So people were, concerned with how, what the hell? A lot of blocks are like focused on Federation, like the technology looking stuff. So I started making some other looking things just to switch it up a bit. They have their different kind of pros and cons. So you got Romulid. This is the new Romulid. Oops. So this is the new Romulid warp core. They use a singularity drive. So the base unit is the actual reactor. Or the top floaty piece is the warp drive. You put them together and you have a reactor and warp drive. This reactor is big, so this reactor puts out like 10 gigawatts. Um, because if you looked at like the other style, when we do, I don't have it, but the regular reactors, guys, were only 1 by 1 blocks. So you have the ability to stack them the way you want. This is already pre-stacked because they're all the way they are. So, anyways, that's why this one block puts out a ton of power. Obviously, block limited, so you can't put 10 of these on a grid. It's pretty cool. If you notice, it actually gets brighter as you look at it, and then it goes dimmer. The cracks.
Make some really
Yeah.
big ships for that to fit on.
The well, this is a 1 by 1, right? And then up here is only 2. So it's only a 3 by 3.
Oh yeah.
So if you can fit an inhibitor, This is the size of an inhibitor, 3 by 3 by 3. It just looks big when you kind of go right up to it. Then the Klingons. This one's still kind of a work in progress, but Klingons have some funky looking technology, so it's a little harder to put something together. So I did something like they're they're more similar style to the other building solutions we used. So these will rotate once they're powered as well, similar to like, so you can see the reactor is like there's fuel in them and it'll start spinning. And then you got your consoles that will light up, which don't light up yet. And then stuff like that. Because they're a little more rugged. If you have any ideas, I kind of lost uh, some ideas for the Klingon tech for a reactor. There was no good screenshots online of like a reactor, so I kind of just went with some stuff. Um, so new stuff too that's going to be game changing. Well, this one is badass. So Zora. So you have a little AI assistant that flies around with you. If you see on the right side of my screen,
Hmm.
What does it do?
it does many things. So one, I could use it as a. Oh, I did install it. Shit, I gotta turn it on. Well, it has a super zoom, so you could actually zoom like right into the surface of like that asteroid, for example, and see somebody walking on it. So kind of like a. So that would be super useful, especially on that rover planet. Where I know when you're focused on using people, it heals you, health, energy, hydrogen, oxygen. It if you have this deployed with fuel cells, it will slowly start regenerating all of your all of your base stats.
Nice.
Uh, oh, it's in planets. That's why. There you go. So if I turn this off, let me just take my. Oh, is this creative mode? One sec. All right, so you see my life right there. 70 died. If I take out my Zora, she disappeared again.
You said enough.
Yeah. She also talks to you. So look at the health. See, the health is regenerating. bottom
Nice.
left.
And energy too. Yeah, I saw.
And oxygen, they'll all regenerate. So as long as you have these fuel cells inside your inventory, it will continuously regenerate your life. So you'll basically never die. So so she'll randomly start spouting some quirky comments and stuff like that while she's out. Right. Now the scope.
The Iconians were an ancient and highly advanced civilization known as the Demons of Air and Darkness. They had the ability to travel vast distances instantly through gateways, and their technology was far beyond that of most known species.
So this is the scope enhancement that's on Zora. So when you have her equipped, you can also zoom right in.
All life dies, but don't worry, I will revive you.
Yandi.
So if you just heard that last one, she's like, everyone dies, but don't worry, I'll revive you. Because she does. If you have Zora out and powered and you die,
I'm not sure I'm always right, but I'm never wrong.
let me go kill myself here. Sorry, as long as she's in your inventory, so as long as you have her available, she will revive you.
Welcome back, Commander. I have revived you from your last known location.
That's
There
pretty
you go.
good.
There's your old body that'll disappear. If you look in your inventory, all your stuff transfers into your inventory automatically, so you don't have to go to your backpack. But so that has a cooldown effect on it, where you're only allowed to use it so often. I think it's like once. I have to check once every 5 minutes or something like that. That it allows you to be able to revive you. Otherwise, you'll be have to use a survival kit point. But again, super handy having that on you because one, quality of life, right? People lose life. You're out of oxygen. You didn't have a bar on you, like a can. Uh, you low life, try to find a survival kit to recharge your health. Now you got that. So Zora is super cool. She's actually almost done. Uh, I just have to do a couple more things for her, and I could file that one as complete. So the next one we got is the Tree of Life. Here is our Tree of Life. Really cool looking tree that goes inside your base. And this tree, when it's on your grid and it's powered, and your grid has hydrogen tank, oxygen tank, power, etc., this will recharge all your stats within a radius. So if you put one of these Tree of Lives in the center of your ship or center of your base, it will actually recharge all your stats slowly over time as well. So if we kind of grab a guys power. Ah, So there's our tree of life. If you notice, our O2, power, and oxygen. So hydrogen is slowly increasing, which is a bug because there's no hydrogen attached to this grid. So I got to fix that. But generally, nothing should be increasing unless the grid actually has hydrogen and oxygen on it to pull it from. Um,
So it charges you, not the grid's hydrogen. It charges your personal hydrogen, right?
your personal. So you and basically anyone in the vicinity, it would recharge your stats. So this way, when you're like running around your base, you don't have to worry about dying or running out of oxygen or something like that. Yeah, you'll always be topped up basically.
What's the range on that Sarg?
Right now, I think it's 100 meters. So if we put a beacon, 100 or 150 radius. So really, it's like 200, right? So that's 100 meters. So
That's pretty
from,
cool.
yeah. Let's see. So if I go out 39. Yeah. So see how my hydrogen's at 39 and I'm using some, so it should go down to 38 anytime now. There it goes. But if I go closer to the tree of life, it should start going up now. Yeah. Yeah, I gotta figure out why I must have broke it in some last code change I did. But anyways, the way it will work is your grid must have hydrogen and oxygen in order for it to be dispersed to all the players within a 100-meter radius from this block. Just to match it, I made some new air vents as well. So these guys, if you wanted to add some little flora kind of looking stuff. So these are little oxygen air vents, but they look cool. So you can kind of add some more design themes and stuff. But mainly the functionality part is going to be pretty banging for the tree of life. Okay, so that's a sneak preview of some of the stuff that is coming. There's much more to be coming as well, like handheld weapons. Like I said, we'll be getting a bunch of like phaser type weapons, disruptors, phaser rifles, so people can run around and shoot people. Some of the blocks, some of our mods will be changing, so we'll be removing some that just the mod authors are not updating and they cause errors, and I'm sick of errors. So the approach I'm taking with this next version, guys, is basically trying to keep it more compact and error free is the goal, rather than focusing on making something huge, which I can't upkeep myself solo. From a dev standpoint, I'm just going to put together something that works and that's fun, and that's not heavily reliant on massive population. Because right now the server is very large, and a lot of the mechanics are based on having full like alliances of people, right? But what if we lose a couple alliances? Then all of a sudden the gameplay gets kind of rude for everyone. So by keeping it a smaller scale, it allows anyone to kind of pick up the mantle and continue. All right, so Let me share my screen. So this is the tentative galaxy map. Can you see my Photoshop?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So the new name was Star Trek Continuum scratched out Conquest. Why is that? Because this iteration is a more compact version that's centered around conquest of the galaxy. So we're going back to only 3 alliances: Klingons, Federation, and Romulans. And each each home sector will allow you to build up to tier 2 tech. So basically, you don't even have to leave your home space until you can make tier 2. Everything else, tier 3 continuum tech, everything past tier 2 will all revolve around doing something in the neutral zone. What is the KOTM? Which was something we were thinking of: 2 massive black holes pulling on each other, and in the center is the KOTM. So you're fighting basically gravity. And then if you lost your impulse computer, or you didn't have one installed, or something, you could be swept and pulled into one of these gravity wells. You got the Trayland dead zone. So we talked about that earlier. That's the small grid rover only areas, or just small grid only areas. So people will be able to design small grid ships that are like rovers and traverse challenges in that area that you can only beat by building those kind of things for that area. In the center, we have the sun, which is a super glowy sun with a massive corona. We're going to be bringing in kind of like a buzzard collector or ram scoop, so you'll be able to fly around the corona of the sun, and you'll slowly regenerate plasma. So you can refill your plasma generators for your impulse computers or impulse engines. So this would be a very easy way to kind of slowly, passively build up your hydrogen or your plasma storage. Um, there is so far one planet called Galorndon 4. It is a very funky looking planet. It's something different that we haven't done before, where it's very alien. It's like picture the alien planet, but purple and blue and like different. So it's a very funky looking planet, but there'll be some fun stuff on there as well for giving you a reason to go down there. There'll also be some sort of asteroid cluster, which will have some tier 3 ores that you can farm. But then again, there will be the requirement to do something like the Trayland event, Galdor Core, in order to achieve, further things, which are yet to be determined. But anyways, this is like the fun park. The neutral zone is where a bunch of stuff is going to be happening, where people can come in and do different things, events, fight, PvP, that kind of stuff. But that's not all. Oh, just might as well go back here. So each home sector, guys, has their main planet, a moon, and then it has 2 other feature planets and a celestial body. So that celestial body is actually going to be home of the asteroid belt for like your tier 2 stuff. So when you spawn originally, you're by Earth. You have a cluster right near you. You start playing the game. As you advance, you can go to the next belt. The next belt will have different ores, different challenges. This also be some gravity here, so you gotta watch you don't die, that kind of stuff. And then everyone has their own kind of challenges. So Klingon space, they got their starter asteroid belt in the Briar Patch that they have. Right now, it's our old Theros looking thing that we had. I'm looking to change it. I just haven't found a really cool celestial body that I want to put into Klingon space. So any Klingons out there have suggestions, by all means, let me know. And then we got the Romulan space. They get their own black hole, similar. Their asteroid cluster will be near the black hole, and it will also look a little different. It's not the same black hole as these other black holes down here. They're just the same picture, but there's different mods. All right, so the next thing, which is probably going to be one of the biggest changes, is the conquest part of it. So let me open. So I'm not sure if any of you have ever played Risk or like a tabletop game, Dungeons and Dragons. You know, every section of the map is a hexagon, and you gotta take over that hexagon, and then you basically like conquer. So it's very similar concept that we're working on here now for this next phase. Uh, oh, there it is. All right. So this is a universe map that will be updated in real time. So as people conquer parts of the galaxy, this map will be updated. If we zoom in, you can see how there's all these hexagons. So right now I have this set up for 3.0. So if I zoomed in to say here, Bajor is owned currently. You can see it's blue, which means Federation, and you can see UFP owns it. These are all the different capture points. So as each capture point is captured, these would light up, and you would know who owns what. If I go to the other side of the map, here's the Dyson, Alpha Dyson. You can see UFP owns it. Nobody owns Delta currently, and the other ones are not online. If we come down here, the south part of the map, Korma. Nobody owns Korma. So anyways, this map was going to be updated in real time for your players to check this out. Whoops. I hit duplicate a few times. So what's going to happen is right now, everything is like super spread out, right? There's so many hexagons and in between stuff. But because the galaxy's a little smaller, the next one positioned differently, what's going to happen is this is going to look like not Bajor. This would be, say, Federation space. Federation space is going to have 10 hexagons, we'll say. All right, so pretend like all these are Federation space. Now, if an enemy wants to declare war on the Federation, they can come and start taking over these capture points one by one. And then they would be owning like their color Klingons or whatever, green for Romulans. They would start taking over the entire map. And the Federation would basically crumble. So the Federation would have to fight back and protect their borders, right? And that's the point of this conquest is, you know, other people, once you get to endgame and you have a bunch of stuff and you're fighting, like where do you go from there? What's the content? So this is an ongoing content where you can claim ownership of the entire galaxy by theoretically taking over every capture point in everybody's sector. The only one that you can't take is basically the one surrounding your homeworld. So they'll like one capture point will say, or one hexagon around Earth. That one will always just remain blue because if any new player joins, they need a place to start. But you can take over everything else. Then I'm still looking into it, but currently we have like the dices and stuff, and like you fight to take over a territory. What you do, you get certain perks. So I'm trying to look into this is still very early, but a different system for territories where when you destroy a or when you own an entire territory, it opens up the ability for your alliance to start purchasing special buffs. So, like a global refinery speed buff, a global yield speed buff, a global whatever buff, right? So, you'll basically, as long as you're part of the alliance and um, you'll basically have that buff because it's been purchased by your alliance. Then there'll be tiers. So you'll have like tier 1, 2, and 3 for speed refinery, tier 1, 2, and 3 for yield, tier 1, 2, and 3 for drilling, right? Which is for mining. And then as a team, you guys need to pool your credits together to buy these upgrades, which you can only buy if you own a territory. And then you have to pay an upkeep, which means that if you want the top tier 3 drilling buff and it costs, I don't know, a billion SC, then there'll be a cost associated daily that you will have to pay in order to maintain that tier 3 upgrade. If you're, you know, not, you'll have to make some smart decisions. If you may want the tier 3, but there's no way we can, I don't know, for upkeep, or what if someone leaves or whatever. So you just basically have to say maybe it's better we just do a tier 2. It's cheaper in the upkeep. It's cheaper to buy. We just do it that way or something. But anyways, so I'm looking into that. So you guys work as a team to purchase these buffs and keep them active. And it also helps keep the economy active because, again, you need money. And money is only done through the economy. So it'll keep stuff buying and selling and all that. So that essentially, then this would be updated on like our website, or maybe I'll put a link on the Discord or something like that. So you can see always who's trending, who owns what, and when. And you can see the names of who's taking stuff over as they go. So if you see like UFP owns all this space, and then all of a sudden, I don't know, the Klingons start coming in red, you can actually will be able to see this transition happen as they completely like a wave come through and take over Federation space. And then, you guys can RP or figure out how you want to work that out. If you lose more than like 50% of your territory, then you're gonna lose your perks. So all the stuff that you bought, like your territories and your assembler speed increase and all that stuff, you don't want to lose your territory. You have to fight to defend it. If you lose it, then you're gonna lose your perks, which means you have to rebuy the perks, which then means you need more money. So that kind of stuff. and I haven't figured out any super perk to give yet. Like if you conquered your own, like if you own two territories, say I own all of Federation and all of Klingon, what does that enable for me? What cool thing do I get? I haven't figured that out yet, but to help give a reason for another reason for conquest. Overall, we're going to be going through the weapon mod again, try to iron out why certain things are happening, like why we have to do so many fixed ships and all that bullshit. What shields are shields, I can't do anything about that. But something where weapons are not firing, I'm gonna look into that. Also add some new weapons, spinal lance, which is like a massive cannon in the front of your ship that will be able to like carve a hole out into someone. We're looking at adding something like that, as well as a new variant for your phasers and disruptors, which will look and feel more like Star Trek Discovery. So instead of the long beam sound, that kind of typical phaser sound, you know what I mean? Like, it drives you nuts, gives you a headache. It'll be more like the Discovery one, which is more of like a pew 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 kind of sound, and it's not a solid beam that they shoot. They shoot more like turret style, like the PHP, the point defense phaser, something like that. So we'll be modifying some stuff like that to just to give it a little more variety, and then I have to figure out how if we want to make it stronger in a certain way. Maybe it does more damage or less damage or something like that. We'll have to figure out something. But yeah, I'm also open to any other weapon suggestions, since Conquest is all about fighting. People want nice weapons, so if you have any suggestions, DM me your suggestions for weapons, but make them plausible. Don't be like, oh, board cutting beam, let's cut a ship in half. That wouldn't work out too well in our gameplay. But like, yeah, if you have any suggestions, let me know.
Like the block thing you said about.
Yeah, the bore cutting beam. Well, we could add a bore cutting beam, but not so powerful that it literally cuts through your entire ship in one shot, and you now have two grids. It's a little OP, right? Like that's the typical bore cutting beam. It can just carve out anything from your hull. We could bring one in, we can call it that, but it would have to be, come with a suggestion of, hey, and we could tweak it so it's not as powerful, and maybe we could do this. Like it does
Or
80% of the damage to the hull that a disruptor does, or something.
just throwing this out there, one shot and it's wasted. Like the block breaks. But it is super powerful and it is super expensive.
Mm.
Just to take out
Well-
armor, so you could like put armor out possibly.
Tractor beam will be cool.
Well, those are the kind of suggestions I want to hear, right? So, if you have suggestions on a cool weapon from one of the Star Trek universes, or even not, at the end of the day, right? If it's a cool sci-fi kind of weapon, we can turn it into Star Trek somehow. Like, I'm not overly concerned at this point anymore of sticking to lore so much. I want fun first, if that makes sense. So, you know, yeah.
Like Monte said, tractor beam would be extremely cool if plausible.
Yeah, the tractor beam is a pain because the only iteration that's out there, it the physics don't work well. Like you can slingshot someone, like if you tractor beam someone, you could literally get them like a whip, and you could throw them across an asteroid. Like it didn't work well. That's why we haven't added the transporter. Uh, but yeah, I could take another look at it. Maybe something changed. Um,
Well, tractor beam could be used with very long maglock. If you use the maglock with long distance, tractor beam could be like something like that, something like that.
Yeah, but I can see it turning battles into this funny festival of clang then instead of
yeah,
shooting each other.
yeah. Even with the Ganymede ones being as far as they are, people are always concerned like someone maglocks you and then warps away with your hull, right? Or warps you. I could technically warp you away into a sun and then just thrust forward and then undo my maglocks and let you drift into a sun and die or a planet.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, but like there's now if we had a maglock that was 50 blocks long, people are gonna be maglocking you from like ship distances away. It's too
Yeah,
much.
the more you think about it, the less it sounds like a good idea. I can already see people kidnapping newbies.
Yeah, sitting there mining, all of a sudden they get pulled out. Yeah,
Uh,
no.
for sure, that will be used for it for sure.
Well, if you have your shield down, maglock should work. But if you have your shield up, maglock should not work.
Unless your shield is down because it's blown up.
Yeah, yeah. So you can be maglock at, but if your shield is up, there's no way you can be mag. So that's another way to
Right.
use it.
Yeah, but if your shield is up, if I shoot you, your shield goes down. I use a 50 block range tractor beam maglock,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
now I have you
I'm locked.
tractored. Right, you're
Yeah,
locked.
but if my shield come back on, the tractor beam lock is go down. I mean, it's unengaged.
Right. Yeah. I just I couldn't look into it, Montreal, but unfortunately, whenever you inject a new weapon of some sort, you have to, or any block for that matter, you basically have to think of how do I exploit the fuck out of this, and how are
Yeah,
people going to use this to break other things in the game because they're going to, right? It's
yeah, sure,
intended
of course.
one way. I know your intentions are wholesome, but I know that the wrong hands get on this, and all of a sudden, you know, then Sarg looks like the bad guy because he takes it off or he gimps it. So
Using unintentional mechanics to break the game.
yeah,
Yeah,
Exactly.
the sorry. I was saying the point defense range is a bit too long for my taste. It should be shorter for the avatar. We always get killed by the point defense. There's no way to do something about it. The range is too far away.
point defense. I think. Yeah, I have a note of that. I'm gonna look to see if I can tweak it a little bit, make it less accurate. So if you're traveling at a high speed, it'll be harder to target lock your body.
Yeah, it's just the range is way too far away.
Well, it's because it's also a point defense phaser. You want
Yeah.
a far range if you're shooting torpedoes, right?
Yes, yes, but from Avatar point of view, it's when you try to get come close to a ship, you always get killed by the point defense because the range is like it's too far away. It's difficult to capture NPC with nanobot because of the point defense.
But that's the point. It's supposed to be difficult to capture an NPC ship with a nanobot because a nanobot,
Mm-hmm.
you literally just drop a block on a grid and you wait and you're like, I got a grid, right? There's
Yeah,
no skill involved. The skill is don't get shot to place the nanobot on the grid, and dismantle the one that's on there already.
yeah,
So yeah, that's a design challenge that was meant to be there, because again, We don't want what happened in 2.0 and people farm for 40 minutes and they have 6 top tier elite ships that they just farmed.
That's
Which-
like how it is now, even.
I know. Go and that's an inevitability, right? Everyone and their mom was crying when when they first came out because they're like, it's too hard. Then they learn how to best fight them. Now they have it on repeat, right? It's super easy. But I haven't changed anything, guys. I haven't changed anything on the web. They're exactly the way they were. I think we made a small tweak regarding like how nanos work, but that's it. Like we were going to make a new iteration of NPCs that never got finished, but they are the same as they were before. So before everyone getting upset because they're so hard, now everyone's like they're way too easy. So
No,
it's
I wouldn't say they're way too easy. They're still a challenge, and you can't farm that many in an hour like you could in 2.0 maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it costs too much for a fight right now. The base we need a really good base to be able to fix your ship, and the refinery process is not fast enough to be able to fix your ship correctly with the parts that you need. Is something is not balanced.
Yeah, that's where the group comes in. So if you want to have 50, 60, 70, 80 refineries, you need a group if you want to have that kind of industry. And
Yeah.
that makes sense to reward because a group gameplay has its complexities and it should reward over solo play for some things.
Yeah, there's only so much
Yeah.
you can do as a solo player.
Well, I did give a good challenge in 2.0 as a solo player. So like everyone was
Yeah.
on me, but I fight my way in solo play. I'm still playing solo right now, and I can tell you that refinery process is very difficult right now for me because my ship I go fight NPC, and all the time I get back and my ship is like cut in half, and I try to fix, but the refinery cannot keep up with what I need, so it's like it's too slow. It's very difficult. I got very good miner, but the refinery process is too slow.
Well, you can always join Patreon and get additional refineries. there's
Yeah,
there's always a plug. Yeah.
yeah. Continuum refinery, are they available?
No, there's no. But if you owned a Dyson sphere, you could instant refine, right? Use a hyper refinery, but then you
Yeah,
need probably a team to take over a Dyson. Um, you you know, Patreons get additional refinery perks, right? It's your challenge you're having is because you're a solo player, right? It's
yeah.
and you have to think of it in perspective. If I said, okay, Montreal, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to increase 80% refinery across the board so that it works out better for you and you can do it well. That's you
Well,
as a solo.
I
That's
will
you as a
pay for
solo player.
refinery.
What if
Yeah, I will
now?
pay for refinery.
What
Don't
if the
comment that.
Federation, who has 15 active players, now they get 80% times 15. Now they're
Yes.
just unstoppable, right? So
Mhm.
it's that's why balance is very difficult. It's
Yeah.
anything you give
Wait.
to a solo player, multiply it out by 10 when you have a group of people.
Yes. I will take the federation on myself. All going to die.
Uh,
But I'm going to buy some Patreon for a refinery. That's for sure. If it's available for Patreon, yeah. I need some more refinery option. That's a good idea.
yeah,
In
yeah.
life, you pay
Additional
for what you
assemblers
need.
and refineries you get.
Yeah. I need those. So I will see for sure for Patreon.
All right. So thanks. So 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 far, guys, that's what we have in a nutshell. So conquest system based on these hexagons, you can fully take over entire territories. The Romulans can invade the Klingons can invade the Federation, the Klingons could wipe everyone out, right? Like they could dominate everyone. So that gives people that's one thing people really liked about 2.0 is that we had this like kind of like conquest system where you could take over territories in other areas and basically be like, you know, we're in your backyard, and say you've conquered the galaxy, like bragging rights. So we're bringing that back in a much better flavor, where you have these hexagon points and you can take them over, and it tracks in real time and stuff like that. And then all PvP is everywhere. Really, there's no safe spot. This also gives RP abilities. So, the Federation, you would legitimately want to set up patrols. So, like right now, guys, so the Federation owns a Dyson sphere right now. So pretty much majority of them live at this Dyson because they have everything they want. So that means they're not at home. So what I'm trying to do is bring everything back to home. So now, if you are a endgame player, you have a reason to go home to your home planet. Your home planet doesn't have 3 types of ore on it anymore. You can actually mine your home planet and actually build up to tier 1 stuff, which is going to be a benefit. There's it brings everyone closer together in terms of your alliance, and it allows you to do like border patrols and stuff like that, right? And take over stuff. You can have a task force. If you have 10 hexagons that represent Federation space, hexagon 8 has gone down. Klingons have taken it. You can send a squad out there to go take it back, right? Or battle if they have a fleet, right? Or something. So I thought that was just going to be a cool ongoing conquest basis of sorts. And then we got the neutral zone, which you'll have. Again, I'm going to rework the impulse drives again to kind of make them more commonly used. Also, plasma can now be generated by flying into the corona of the sun, which is going to be very useful. You got still your KOTM in between 2 black holes. We have a special planet that's going to do something to be determined, an asteroid belt, and the Traylan Dead Zone, which is going to be all about small grid battles, small grid Atmo, small grid rover, and events and stuff like that, and more. So if you have any suggestions of cool gameplay loops, guys, send me a DM and we'll throw it into the neutral zone. This neutral zone, this is like the fun zone, all combat that is not directly related to like people, is going to be here. So end game events, fun game loops, stuff like that. And the galaxy looks essentially like this, almost like a chevron, right? Goes like that and then down. And then this is all just dead space, which we could add later on different things. We always have a wormhole ability near Bejor or something. I could move it. We can always expand and take you to a different server by using those wormholes. But yeah, so that's pretty much what we have planned, rough outline.
And
Now,
when this is supposed to be there?
well, so that's the question, right? Initially, a lot of these concepts were designed for 4.0 that I just pushed to 3.5. Technically, rebuilding an entire world, different loops, different tactics. It is possible for me to hanger every single person's grid and then allow you to unhanger them in this new galaxy. That is a possibility. However, do we want to do that? The options right now stand. I can keep 3.0 up and running. So you don't lose your grids. They're there. You can continue playing the way it's designed currently, right? And then I make 4.0 and I can run that separately. So 3.0 and 4.0 will be running concurrently. Then 4.0, you do a fresh start. So we're not wiping the server. you're just making a new additional server, right? This way, everyone goes through the same starting process, right? Because as it stands right now, a lot of people are on break from the server. Federation still pretty much going strong. You know, the Federation would have a huge advantage, and solo players like Montreal who have like 500 Ferengi cargoes full of ores and stuff, right? Do we bring all that over and then now it's a deterrent for more players to join? Do you know what I mean? If I knew that 10 guys had an obscene amount of stuff available to them that they brought over from another server, then I don't know if I even want to start because I may be too far behind. So I don't know. I'm open to any suggestions I could put on the floor. Oh, and we will get the ablative armor finalized and working for 4.0.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. But when let's say just for the fun, when the 3.5 could be ready, any date when it say like, okay, now it's ready, go. Let's go to it.
Oh no, we don't have a date yet. I've built a rough galaxy map. I've selected all the planets. I've gone through the code of all the planets and I've removed all the errors in all the planets because every planet mod has errors. So that's another thing too that I'm doing this time around, guys, is like I don't want any errors. I'm not launching. if I see an error message and it's more of a warning, like no, we're not launching. Like I want quality and stability is first priority because that was the biggest piss off for a lot of people was that back-to-back issues and it took time to fix stuff and all that kind of stuff. So, I'm going through monotonously every single mod, every single line of code to make sure they're not producing any errors for launch. Obviously, when you put 50 people on a server, different things happen. So there may still be crashes and stuff, but I'm going to do my best up front. But a lot of the issues we had were revolving around territories, which we kind of resolved them all now in 3.0 because they work now. So that is going to be, like 3.0 was a testing ground almost for something like this. Yeah. So yeah, there's no date as of yet, but like I said, I can keep 3.0 running for people who don't want to lose their stuff, or I can keep it running until literally no one ever plays on it again, and then I'll just turn it off. Or we I can keep you guys updated, regular updates. We could do a wipe originally and just move to the next one. I don't think I probably honestly I don't want I don't want what to happen 2.0 to happen to 3.0. Whereas we announced we're working on something big and we announced that yes, it'll be a wipe and everything will be restored, and then like mass exodus of players. Parents like, oh, I'll just wait for the new version to come out. I don't want to lose everything I just worked towards. So I don't want that to happen. So I'm more inclined, guys, to say we'll keep 3.0 running indefinitely, and when 3.5 or 4 or whatever we want to call this number happens, then it would run concurrently with this. Might be the better solution, and or we do a slow transition or something.
That does not sound pretty attractive. Maybe looking into having a discussion as a community, a possibility of a quantum hangar, but only limited to 1 grid per player uh, to transfer over the stuff, or just a clean slate wipe. Because now that we know that the new version is coming, it's yeah, but a lot of the game is grind. What's the point of the grind? Like if you know that there will be no transferring and that 3.0 will stay 3.0 and it will not get updated and it will die. So
Well,
maybe a discussion on that.
yeah, no, you raised a really good point, and I thought about this as well. And what I was thinking is, we create a server event in 3.0 that the winning group of people would then obtain something in 4.0. So you get a unique ships to start. You get something by by beating 3.0, we'll say, or being top dog, right? You and X people or whatever get a certain perk going into the next iteration or something like that, right? Always up for discussion, but we could do something like that to give purpose to the continuing in the current iteration. But like I said, there's no date on this because it's really when I have time. I'm working on it on all my spare time, but like I got a baby on the way. I just made myself sick by working too hard. Took a week off of work to go renovate the house and died from exhaustion. So, I'm trying to balance a lot of things. But the main, the biggest challenge at this point between everything that we just mentioned, like all the functionalities and stuff, is the upkeep system. So figuring out how to actually set up refinery buffs, assembler buffs, um, alliance banks, all that stuff, tiering, upkeep payments, that stuff. That programming hasn't begun yet. So that is going to be the biggest hurdle between launching and not launching the next iteration, and I have no idea how long that's going to take. So I'm working on the stuff that I can hammer out now, and then focus on that next part, and then kind of go from there.
I think what you should do to not lose player is to keep 3.0 and update 3.0 until it's like 3.1, 3.2, 3.12, until 3.5, and you keep the 3.0 alive, but update. We don't want to lose people from what the work they done to the grid, and people lose interest. So you should keep 3.0 and update until it becomes 3.5. It's like Star Citizen. Still the same game, but they update. Like now it's 3.24 in Star Citizen. So it's updating. Still the same thing, but it's updating. So
Yes.
that way you don't lose people because they are
Well-
waiting for the new server.
Well, I was thinking of this as well, right? And again, give me your feedback, guys. A lot of players have said they want a PvE server. So when the next iteration comes out, I could make 3.0 PvE only. And then then the next iteration is Conquest, which is heavily based on PvP. So we could run two concurrent, and I could still do upgrades, obviously, bug fixes, add some cool blocks, that kind of stuff. I could selectively give 3.0 what 4.0 has, but it would be a PvE esque server.
I still am of the mindset that this server thrives when the two PvP and PvE inform one another. Uh, and again, it's easier said than done because I'm not doing any of the coding or setting any of this up. But if you have a system that, if piracy is a PvP component, right, and resources are precious, and the value of mining is much higher, right? Because I remember in 2.0, there was really no reason to do anything other than farm NPCs because it was so lucrative. And yeah, it was a little bit more challenging, but people got it down to a science, and pretty soon it was like mining was just a useless feature. Um, if you can put more stock in that, it creates an environment where you need ships protecting. And I think to some degree in the launch of 3.0, I noticed right off the bat that was evident. Like we had people out mining, and there were suit raids, other things going on that were frustrating, and pretty soon we were having to put escorts out with those miners. I mean, it was a general practice. So,
And that's the goal. Like
yeah.
that vision is what I'm looking for that conquest, right? Is that you want to work as a team, going out to mine. You do want an escort. You do need backup. Like there'll be different engineering challenges, like the Trayland loop, right? I may do something where there's a precious mineral on Trayland, and the only way to get it is to battle it out with a small grid, or scope with a small grid, mine it with a small grid, which is slower, right? And then go and dock up to a ferry ship in orbit or something. right? Like these are different design challenges that would,
Could
add fun.
could I suggest, and again, people will probably hate this suggestion for good reason, but it's a feisty one.
Hmm.
I was thinking about GTA Online the other day. Some buddies and I were talking about it. I was explaining to my wife because she just picked up the title, and I was like, "Yeah, the best part is when you run your own cocaine processing plant or whatever, and you try to sell the stuff. Every player can see where you are. So you accomplish that with the warp signature to a certain degree, but it would be interesting if the higher the value of your cargo, the more visible you were on the map. Almost like if you're going to do a run for something that you know is in high demand, there's a very high risk of you being caught, and there's two opportunities. One, there's an opportunity for you to solicit another player to help protect you. Maybe you pay them, maybe they're on your team and they just enjoy that. But two, there's an increased chance for piracy, and the pirate in question may specifically be looking for these opportunities because they don't want to be stuck mining. But in either case, the value of mining itself has to be drastically increased for that to work.
Yeah, I could look at something like that. The challenge would be based on inventory. Like the coding can be done. I already have an idea of how it could be done, but the challenge is what if like a lot of players have vaults. Like here's a vault just with tons of shit that I always hanger, and then I unhanger and to pull stuff out, I rehanger it to keep it safe. So whenever they unhanger their vault, it's gonna top grade across the entire server, which is not going to be ideal.
No,
But
but I would also argue that the purpose of the vault isn't to hide your stuff. The purpose of the vault is to safeguard it when you can't be online. That's kind of that's
well,
kind of the point
that's the
hang on thing.
purpose, but
Yeah,
that's not how it's used.
right. Right.
We could do something where it doesn't affect stations. It's only ship mode. It
Mhm.
broadcasts when you have a ship that has X amount of inventory worth X amount of dollars,
Mhm.
something like that. I could put something together, send me a DM with your idea, and then I'll see
Okay.
what flavor of it we could kind of try to figure out.
Okay.
Because that would add a cool element too, right? Because then we could add a block like cargo cloaking, right?
Mhm.
In Star Trek, you always hear like, "Oh, they boarded you," and they're like, "Oh, the ship looks clean." That's because there's like a hidden hologram door that has all the stuff behind a dampening field, right?
Mhm.
So we could do something like that, and if we could integrate it in the gameplay loop, make it worth it, like people use it for a reason, then we
Yeah. Does
want that.
anyone here hate that idea? Because if it's a consensus that it's awful, I'm not going to spend the time writing it up.
Well, it's a great idea, but I want to point out that right now my base has 11 volt, and it's not enough for what I'm doing right now. So I'm not sure about it. I like to have my base like secure and safe, and no one know where I am. It's station, but
Right.
I'm still at 11 volt, and it looked like I need at least 6 more volt to be able to sustain myself
Well,
correctly.
I think in
So
this instance, it would only really apply if you're mobile. Might be the best way to do it because you can't really
Yeah,
you can't mine with a stationary grid, right? So if it's
yeah,
hangered, it's not visible, and maybe if it's stationed, it's not visible.
I
yeah.
do
I
yeah,
would
want
yeah.
definitely make
If you
it
fly
wouldn't
with it,
affect stations.
I do want to say
yeah.
this.
If you have a cargo ship and you fly with a volt on it, yeah, it should be highlight on the server. Is because like something is going on and it is a lot of value in that ship. So like everyone wants to try to pick it up.
Well, and that's what I
But
really like because imagine Montreal, you see somebody with a cargo full of something, you go full blown Montreal pirate, and you
oh
swoop in,
yes,
but then
I'm the
but
first
then
one that
like
going.
the Klingons, Cardassians, whoever the hell else show up too, just by chance, and it's like one or two guys, and
Yeah,
they're like, oh shit, there's more people here, and pretty soon there's like a multi-alliance battle because one dude mined more than he intended to, and everybody saw him on the map.
yeah,
So
yeah.
as per you,
On not station, I think is a very very good idea. If you have not a
Agreed,
vault on
yeah.
a ship that fly at warp, if you fly at warp with a vault, yeah, it
What if
need to
it
be.
what if it just amplified the mechanic that's already there? Like, Sarg, would there be a way to look at the warp signature and have it put like a multiplier on it based on cargo value?
Yeah, you could do that.
Or
Don't
even
don't
more
worry about the
easily,
coding. We need just to worry about what makes sense and what sounds good and what works in a gameplay loop. Then
Mhm.
what creative coding we have to do, let me worry about that.
Well, I think
We
it's
just we just
more,
want what's going to work out.
if I'm going to pitch it, I'd want to try to implement it in a way that's really simple to see if it's worthwhile, right? Because if it results immediately in a handful of skirmishes and makes people have to think a little bit
Yeah.
more carefully about when and where they mine and who's with them when they do that, that could be a pretty good
Yeah.
component.
It would have to be baked into the warp core mod because that the warp signatures all work based on speed. So
Mhm.
we'd have to, like you said, add a multiplier that says take whatever inventory they have, hit a threshold, add 10,000 kilometers plus the multiplier, and then
Mhm.
it'll broadcast. So basically, a new like right now when you're not warping, you're broadcasting at 0 or 10 or something. So
Mhm.
we would say that hey, based on your inventory, your base broadcast is now actually 5,000 kilometers because
Okay.
you have a bunch of shit on your thing. And then
what
What about
yeah.
having something that's like, because like when a number of players that are interested in PvP or trying to hunt miners or whatever, um, the warp signature thing is really great and really fun to play with, and it kind of solves some of it. But if you're just going out like blind searching for something, anything, um, uh, you know, it's a tremendous amount of time, to be able to find something. So I wonder if kind of along these lines, because the idea is that when you're going out and mining, for example, you are at risk, and if you're a bad guy, you have something to go, do that's reasonably lucrative per unit of time played. So another what if you were to have, because you already have like a radar mechanic, would it be possible or a good idea maybe to try like a block that functions in that same kind of way, but also maybe broadcasts your position? So like if you're, because you have your scanner block, and I know that was intended to kind of function that way at one point, and it kind of doesn't work, but the radar doesn't seem to have that problem. Could you do something like that with a reduced radius to function like, in that kind of a way, but also makes you incredibly vulnerable?
Mm.
Like, does that make sense?
yeah, some sort of radar that you could uh,
Yeah, like
pulse
you're,
to
yeah,
find
exactly.
people,
Like you're a
right?
destroyer or a submarine, and you've got your sonar, but that sonar is
Yeah.
also loud, so you're picked up by also anybody within that, that
Directional
area.
scanner. Directional scanner like you online.
Yeah.
Yeah, or something like that. I'm not familiar with how that works, but
Yeah, that I wouldn't be opposed to that. And the give and take is that your broadcast, your location gets broadcast because you're actively scanning
yep.
for other people, right? So yeah, that we could do something like that. I'm sure people would love more ways to have organic PvP and stuff.
A kind of unrelated topic that I wanted to try and squeeze in at some point today was, uh, like you've brought up the topic of the PvE experience and people who prefer that versus the PvP experience and the people that prefer that. To me, I kind of see those as both, two extreme ends, the two extremities of like a spectrum of like player experience. And I think that there's a lot of people that fall, along that spectrum somewhere. Like I like mining, I like the PvE stuff, but that's not fun for me if there's no risk. But on the same side, I don't want to only PvP, and hunt. That's also not fun for me. And I'm sure that there's, people that fall, all over the place on that. When it comes to talking about solutions to be able to have gameplay experiences that are possible for anywhere along the spectrum. Like we seem to talk a lot about solutions for one and solutions for the other, but it seems to be difficult to blend those in such a way that that you can kind of, depending on how you play or where you play, or what you're going after or what you choose to get involved in, you kind of are left with only one of those options, or the other. And I wonder if that alienates some players and might contribute to some of like when people fall off, like they play for a while and then they kind of get bored or go inactive or take a break, because they're it's not quite hitting the same itch. And along that same kind of line, I think there's a similar theory, at least to think about, regarding uh, like the group sizes that play together. So you have the alliance system, and there's a lot of you're talking about the conquest mechanics, and as it currently stands, like Dyson spheres and things like that. Those are like the largest, like the highest scale of teamwork within the server, doing interacting and doing things like that. So if so I'll use the Black Fleet as an example. Uh, when we like if we want to go for like a Dyson sphere, for example, we may be a group of 4 active players, but it doesn't matter how active we are, we can't compare to like groups that are the size and the activity level of the Federation, just because of like just sheer numbers. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how badly we want to take part in the larger stuff, we can't, which is fine, and that makes sense. There should be a difference, and there should be a gameplay reward for being able to organize large groups of people and working in that way. But there isn't anything really in the middle, so we kind of wander around and have ships and pick fights in the King of the Hill, kind of scenario, and that's kind of it.
One thing I would toss into the hat with that, though, Raptor, because I 100% agree with you, but with one caveat that that's where the political aspect could come into play, because one faction could scalp other players from other factions, right? And we could effectively, right, or a faction could effectively become a replacement for that larger alliance.
That's true, and that's possible, and we kind of tried that with the
Right.
re-implementation of the Orion Ferengi alliance,
Mhm.
and it flat did not work at all.
Okay.
Not only did it not work, but the minimum number that Sarg wanted us to have to be able to bring that back to life, we got those number of people available, and they, not even all of them joined, and not only that, we didn't get anybody else to join either. So
Okay.
like it completely fell flat.
Well,
Like
well, that's why, guys. That's why we're going back to our roots of only 3 alliances, and you don't have to join alliance. Obviously, there's perks towards that. If you're a faction, a large faction, you can still take over capture points. You can still take over hexagons. You would be an independent, and your name would appear on the hexagon as your faction name, not an alliance name. But you could theoretically still take over any of these capture points as a
right, but
faction.
right. So I was thinking a lot about that when you were explaining it, but in practicality, you kind of can't, though. At least if I'm understanding it right, and here's why. So we'll just keep using the Federation to Black Fleet example, or it doesn't matter, just one alliance and another. Federation is typically bigger by numbers, so I'm going to use them as the big guy. So you have alliance number 2 that's a little bit smaller, or maybe half the size, whatever. So they, alliance number 2, we'll say the Romulans go in and try and take one of these hexagons from the Federation. The Federation response is typically very high, because they have a lot of, they just have a lot of players. So there's people on, around the clock.
Yeah.
So it's the Federation is very very good at defending their space because they have the the player resources to do so. So even though it may be just maybe not as significant of a loss, um, uh, I mean they would just defend it as if it was their home planet, and you can't crack it, or they'll just simply take it right back. Like there isn't a scenario where a smaller Romulan empire can can overcome just those sheer numbers.
Yeah.
So, and I think that even so, this is a different proposal that you're bringing up with the hexagon tiles in the conquest format. But and I could be wrong, but I suspect that season 3 3.0 is a lot like that. As soon as the Federation got on their feet, got organized, got the ships they had, got their numbers figured out, and their responses kind of down. um, like nobody's going to fight the Federation because they know that ultimately, I mean, they can't win it. You're just burning resources, and that might be fun for a bit,
Well, they do because
of it. But
if you have
there's not. I mean, there's no reason to.
if
You're
you
not going to win.
have that's why you need to play the political game. If you have not 5 alliances but say 3, then people are going to funnel more into those 3. Just because I'm in the Federation and I want to play a Vulcan, I can still do that. Go build a Vulcan ship and call yourself the Federation. If I'm a Romulan and I want to build a Cardassian ship, okay, build a Cardassian ship, be a Cardassian section of the Romulan Empire, right? You're not limited in your what you want to play in that sense. Also, different wings of government have different things, right? We have the UN Federation, Section 31, off the best interests of the Federation at heart. Don't really respect the presidency. Does their own off the books ops. Like you could play into those things, and you can, if someone wants to join like and be part of and bolster you, they can play those kind of areas. It's about adapting. If the Federation's so strong, then take the Romulans and the Klingons and sign a peace treaty or an aggression pact against the Federation and try to take them down a notch, right? There's different ways to go about it.
Raptor, I think from the standpoint of you're like spot on one point, that from like the perspective of a player who is like wanting to get into it and then feels like it's an insurmountable task, so they kind of lose interest. Like that's a fine point there. But like if a smaller faction was hell bent on taking down a larger faction, I mean, I hate to give him credit because it makes me itch, but I look at Montreal. I mean, he has been maximally effective as an individual pirate.
Yeah.
Has he conquered any territory with this hex format? No, but he's made tremendous headache for much larger groups. And I think even with a small group, a handful of players, if you quietly pool resources and bribe the right people, there is an interesting political format where for example, if I come back joining Black Fleet, I I'm making a conscious choice to participate with an independent faction. So the gameplay style by its nature is going to have to be different. And if the goal collectively is to, in this example, destroy the Federation or something, then we have to look at it from the perspective of, the numbers game will never win. There has to be a political component. So I mean, you're right in the problem, but I think that's sort of, it's the same way. Like if I decide that property taxes are unfair and I decide not to pay them, and I'm just going to simply overwhelm the United States government, um, you know, that's not going to go very well for me.
We could also add, guys, what we did in 2.0. So in 2.0, there was a way to overthrow an alliance. So if Agent Trey is the leader of Federation, and I don't know, the Black Fleet wants to run the Federation, then if they get enough people, Black Fleet and Independent signs a contract with Romulans and Klingons, and now all 3 of them all go against the Federation and they take over all their territories and they hold them for 5 days, we'll say. Then now you have the right to do a hostile takeover of the government. So you could occupy the Federation, which then gives you guys gives players a way to, you know, take over an alliance.
So
Would it be possible to Raptor's point, because it is a good one, and the point you just made too, Sark, is there a way to implement? So let's say, for example, again in this scenario, Federation is the strongest alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to then look at the other alliances and build in some sort of mechanic where I'm thinking of like Crusades from Crusader Kings, right? Like basically launching some kind of mutual alliance that gives them a boost, but it's hard to pull off.
Well, I was thinking like a local faction that gains power based on the amount of the taking over factions territories. So if it's somebody that owns majority of the map, then the locals don't help that much. If you're a smaller faction, you don't own a lot, then the local, which is an AI faction that becomes like friendly with you, is much tougher to kind of balance the field. So that the real difference is made by what the players bring, not necessarily the overall size of the faction. I'm
That
new
would
to
be
it, but I don't know if that's
that would be
possible.
a really cool idea, but that touches so many different mods to to have to be integrated to get that to work. Like
I'm super
the
new to the
group,
game. I don't know much, so yeah.
yeah, but that's a really cool idea. That would be pretty awesome to say like, hey, as you conquer territories, they're no longer friendly to those factions, right? So then now NPCs will spawn and try to kill you because now you don't own the territory anymore or something. That would
Okay,
be
so
a pretty cool concept, but uh, that would be extremely difficult.
It sounds to me, Sarge, like what probably will happen. It usually happens at the start. Federation punching back. Okay, that's fun in its own way. But the problem, a lot of not the problem, but a lot of new guys they spawn in a Federation spawn. You know. So you will have probably like last time every single alliance and faction in the game trying to make a name for themselves or just out of personal beef will go after Federation. The experienced players will stay hidden. They won't engage if they can't win. The newbies will get steamrolled again. I
So
don't think
let
that's
me
necessarily good
Well,
because a lot of people kind of gave up because they got steamrolled so badly trying to get a start as Federation. Is
well,
there any way
this will
to
be a little different. So when the game starts, right, all Romulan space is owned by Romulans, all Federation owned by Federation, and Klingon owned by Klingon. You own that territory at the start of the game. Now, because you own the territory, we put a massive radar in your entire all of your space. So as long as you own the territory, we could make a radar that says you're now visible. Any enemy ship in Federation space will light up like a Christmas tree. So now people can't try to sneak in and wait for noobs and kill them. If they do, you can see them coming, you can run, right? And then that also gives more gameplay to like the Federation or whoever the faction, the alliance is to protect their people. Do you see a fleet of Cardassian ships entering your space? Assemble the fleet, take them out, right? And then as if you lose the territory, there's no radar. So then you don't have to worry about that. And then there's no radar at all in the neutral zone. So
That sounds
it's
good, and it sounds like it could prevent suiting into other factions' space if the radar is big enough to detect the spawn points. I don't care. Like, I'm all for PvP. If people want to fight, I'm fine with it. If I lose a grid, I'm fine with it. But just I wouldn't. I don't like when the newbies on the
yeah,
server they don't get time to get set up. They just get steamrolled over and over, especially at the start of
yeah.
the server.
Yeah, and I don't like that either. And that's happened over and over again in every iteration, right? There's always going to be someone that goes and kills noobs. So, and then they get frustrated and they leave the server. And they could have been, a long-term supporter, but they were like, "Fuck this," and they left. So, the radar being in all of your alliance's space until you lose half of your territories, half of your capture points, then you lose that perk, among other perks.
I
We
don't know.
could do that, and then you won't. They can't get the drop on you.
I don't know how much this matters, but just because I'm new and just getting into it, and just like what like appeals to me of everything that's been said for a long time. There was one thing that was brought up that sounded super cool. Like if I know that I have to join in a situation where I'm gonna be like you're talking about the odd man out, solo, probably gonna lose, don't have a lot. I want to punish the large factions for doing mundane things. So like mining, a piracy sort of thing to promote that idea is dope, or mercenary to protect them. Either side becomes favorable for the small guy at that point, right?
How would we feel about
So
specialization or career blocks? Is that even implementable? Almost like I'm putting a block on a ship. I get one of them. I've assigned it to pirate, and it's unchangeable for 3 months or something.
Like a flag, like you're running a flag. Like that would totally
Yeah.
Yeah.
well, there is something. So I didn't mention this. I forgot to, but also there's gonna I want to implement ship class system in Conquest. So different ships will allow a different amount of armament. So if you have a flagship, you could put more weapons theoretically on it than you could on a escort. So this way you don't have like 20 phasers on a ship that's like 5,000 blocks or whatever. So basically, the bigger the ship you have, the more things you can put on them, and work it that way. So we could, if we implement that, we could implement a status like mercenary, make that a category, which would allow certain blocks.
I don't know
If
how
I
many
so
people
so so my idea is locked to the player, and my justification for that is, if this were a real world scenario and we were out in space, as an individual person, you're not going to have 50 ships in your,
Right.
so, but in this context of the game, of course you do, because it's more fun that way. So I think having the block on each ship, but having what you select be tied to you and locked for a certain amount of time could be a really interesting turn, because it's almost like you're announcing your profession. But there's
Siege,
advantages. Yeah.
there's depending on what mod I don't know if you have like a mod in mind or if you're trying to create one from scratch, Sarg. But the best one that I'm familiar with may allow some of that stuff, Siege, just built into
Mhm.
how it works anyways. For
Cool.
example, so when you place a ship block down, say you call it and you can Sarg would be able to add whatever he could add a mercenary class, quote unquote ship, or whatever, or he can use the traditional, like frigates, destroyers, corvettes, that kind of thing, or whatever he wants. And the ship class system also allows for classifications of for static grids as well. So you could have different types of stations that have different types of buffs and different limitations and things. So the balance of like the way I understand when you say have it locked for like some certain amount of time or
Yeah.
whatever.
Just so you can't switch it
Um,
back and forth right before a
yeah.
fight.
So the balance to that is if you have or that's built into the mod that I'm thinking of anyways, is that if so yes, you can in the mod you can switch it anytime you want. You basically just
Yeah,
select like a drop down menu,
it's
what it's going to be.
OB.
But
You're looking at OB's mod, right? The cockpit.
yes, yep.
Yeah, yeah.
So but the balance is that if you build a frigate or we'll say like a battleship or something, and you have it designated as a battleship within this ship class mod system, that you get all the buffs of a battleship, but you also get all the nerfs of a battleship. So like for example, maybe you have a battleship can have, maybe its power output is way high, so it can just support lots of weapons. But the flip side is that maybe you have it so its thrust and its maneuverability, or maybe its gyroscopic movement is just garbage, so it's just a floating, slow moving fortress. Now if you were to change that to like say like a corvette, so that it just has a massive buff on its maneuverability, um, you're immediately going to be screwing yourself, because you'll have this huge corvette, if the block limits even allow it for that type of ship, but now all of your weapons aren't going to work. You know, so you have this big, more maneuverable thing, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't function properly at all because you built a Corvette that sucks as a Corvette because you didn't take advantage of its buffs and its nerfs. You didn't maximize its buffs and minimize its nerfs. You did the opposite. You made the shittiest possible ship possible by switching to something that doesn't fit the design that you made. So it's like a
Well, so same concept, but there's two approaches, right? There's one of applying it per grid, and there's one of assigning it to player. And there's pros and cons to each, right? Like it would be super freaking cool to employ, Raptor's mod here and have like a fleet of ships that each have specialization classes, right? But I'm also thinking in terms of the player where, a good example would be like Raptor and I have talked a lot about economy and the value of mining, right? Like being able to assert your profession as a miner and then get certain perks just because you did that, but then you're stuck with that decision for a reasonable amount of time. Maybe it's 30 days, I don't know.
well, I think that's kind of already built into the mod because you could make a class that's miner, and then so you build a mining ship, and it's not attached to the player, but if you are a miner, you're going to be spending time mining in a mining ship. Therefore, the ships that you are going to be in already have those, those buffs and things.
If possible, both should be implemented.
Attaching it to a player is a lot more difficult.
Okay. Well, then maybe
attaching it, attaching it to a grid is a lot more plausible. Eventually, we're gonna add I still want to do the reputation system for players. So a player could be assigned a reputation, not just your faction's rep, but what is Raptor Man's reputation? You have a level of reputation, and you'd be deemed a mercenary. Yeah. Supreme Commander, Dictator, but
King
this
Raptor
way,
of the homeless.
Right. The way, because I feel like it changes the way that people look at you if you have some sort of flag. So you come around, you have a pirate flag versus a mercenary flag. You either get the guns out, right, or you see if they can help you. And so I like
that.
Yeah, it just seems
that
like
would be cool.
And that's how I would stay playing for hundreds of hours, even if I never necessarily tie it on to one faction. And it means that I'm going to help the little guys out because I can make that difference up. And then there might be more than one of me.
Right.
Yeah, so one thing that I wanted to add for Siege's benefit on this mod, you can also set faction limits for things, as well as player limits for things. So, for example, if Sarg wanted to set a player limit for, you can only have, this is kind of extreme, but just for the example, you can only have one static grid. In which case, that static grid maybe you have set up specifically as, like, if you are a miner, maybe it's a refinery or like an industrial station or something, and it can come with buffs that reflect that. But now you're stuck, as that's like what you do now. So like, yes, you can grind the station down, change the blocks out, so that it fits some other type of station, for example, maybe like a shipyard type of station or something, so you can just build fast. But you would have to physically change your station, because one of the features of the mod is that if you designate a grid as something and it doesn't fit that criteria, it depowers the whole station and it will not function. It doesn't delete blocks, but it just won't work. So it has to be, whatever the grid is, has to fit within the criteria of the class that you designate for it. So like your wait time, for example, is kind of adjacent to the fact that like you would have to rebuild it, to fit in that way. So you wouldn't be able to just flip flop all quick.
That's a good point.
Anyways, so that's, but then you can also do things like faction limits. Maybe each faction is allowed, like one super battleship or something, and maybe it has higher PCU limits and some different, whatever you want to throw onto it. But there can only be one ship designated as that per faction.
I like that. I like that by its nature, it makes it hard to build a jack of all trades ship. You almost can't.
No, you can't. You really can't. And that's the thing, that it also puts some of the smaller, game for like the individual players within reach. So like there if you balance it right and set it up correctly, which would probably take quite a bit of playing with it, using almost using the server as kind of just a beta for a while, to kind of dial this stuff in.
Mhm.
But like you should theoretically be able to build a small, cheaper, fast ship, but that can perform a function in a way that's unmatched by any other class. So
Just
that you can do something with
Well,
smaller
that's
ships, and it makes sense to do that.
well, that's
real quick
the
before I
ship
forget,
class
'cause
system.
just a quick light bulb moment because I don't want to lose it. Sarg, to address the concern about noobs as well. I don't know how editable this mod would be, but if you could add a
Very.
classification, yeah, if you could add a classification specifically for noobs that expired a certain amount of time after they joined the server, you could
Yeah, like
actually bump
civilians.
out noob ships for 2 weeks or something, so that they could get their feet wet and they're a little bit harder to kill than they should be.
Well, you could just do a starter ship delete after some period of time.
Yeah, that too.
Or a solo self-found mode would probably do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Nobody messes with you, you can't mess
Yeah.
with them, but after a certain amount of hours, you're released into the open world.
We did something like that on a
Well,
separate
if
server, but we would have to keep it on to the server, and then you got to figure out who exploits, right?
Right.
Someone spawns a new starter ship, and then they put on a bunch of weapons that they got from their friend. Now they're invincible for 2 weeks, just demolishing shit. So
I
we
would
would
do
have to think.
it. I do that stuff all the time. As soon as I find a loophole, I definitely abuse the shit out of it. So you're right. I would do it.
Mm, yeah, they always got to think of how can you exploit things when you're building stuff. But
Well, you could do like implement a starter ship delete after so many days, but and have like a starter ship class that can only be applied to
Mm.
like the starter ship. I'm not sure if that's possible, but maybe.
well,
And then if you did that, maybe
honestly,
just
the
have it
radar
set
is
so
going to
the
solve
shields are
a lot of that.
basically invincible.
I think the radar is going to solve a lot of that, because if you're Federation and you see a non-Federation approaching you, you leave,
Yeah, I think
right?
it's
Or
reasonable to
fight.
have them leave.
It's you don't need to make them invincible. If they don't leave, then that's their fault. I can't dumb it down even more. An enemy ship's approaching. Let's
Right.
act like a rock and
Choice
hope
of
they don't
remain.
see us.
They can't leave, Sarge. You're forgetting they have 2 ion thrusters, and a fleet of tier 3 ships is bearing down on them. They have warp 1 or warp 2. Where
Well,
can they escape?
Well,
that's the
that
difference.
only
By
Fast,
the
and
time you
that's
have a tier 3 ship, your alliance should be organized and have people to protect them.
yeah, I'm talking
Survival
about
Tom, you're
the
concerned
noobs.
about noob players, right?
Noobs, yeah, yeah. I'm not concerned about like the experienced players. They can, if they die, they die. Fuck it. But the noobs, yeah.
Well, as far as like alliances are concerned, I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong, correct me, but I haven't heard many stories of alliances, seal clubbing as a rule. That usually turns out to be either a case of the noob decides to start mouthing off, and they're like, "Well, fuck them," or an individual within an alliance that's just kind of a dickhead and thinks that that's cool.
Yeah, and you have that one individual with a endgame ship trying to prove a point to the opposite alliance and goes and kills all of their noobs.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that
Um,
is true.
it really happens, and it's fun for some people, and I understand it. But I'm trying to prevent those players from leaving the server after that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm thinking. If you have a radar that shows your entire Federation space, and you see an enemy in your space, you send ships, you blow them up, right? Like you'll be actively looking for those things. So wouldn't you go and try to blow them up?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I get
if you're
you. Like,
chilling by some place in your sector that's not the neutral zone, and you see your radar light up of enemy ships, and you're online, you would probably get you and your buddy. If it's one ship, maybe you would try solo it. If not, you and a buddy, and go and try to protect their space. They're going to light up. They're basically top grid when they enter your territory, so that anyone can action them as end game. And then early game, everyone's going to be in the same kind of ships, so it shouldn't really be so much of an issue then, as well. it's there's no real way to do an invincibility thing like yeah there's,
As long as I know a big boy's coming, I'll get out the way or I'll earn my beating, is what it feels like to me, at least. I forgot about the fact that if there's awareness, decisions were made after that point, right?
yeah. So I think I hear what you're saying. I would probably want to try the simpler approach and just see what happens when people top grid and what happens organically. If if we if we get reports of like massive seal clubbing, your alliance isn't helping to kill people entering your territory, that's the point of the game, right? It's conquest and protecting your shit. So if you're not protecting your territory and enemies are entering it, then you're not playing the game.
On your tile system, Sarg, have you considered like the spacing between the okay, so uh let me throw a thought out there, and then I guess everybody just tell me if it sucks. If so, to use your visual right there, say Bajor, and then some group of those hexagons around it is Federation space, and that's significant for some reason, because you can come in, like, you can lose these tiles. Are these tiles going to be spaced such that, say, the furthest one out, say it's like a radius of like maybe 5 tiles out in each direction, just for fun, that 5th tile out, that even at tier 3, for example, that distance to cover from home takes longer than it actually takes to lose that tile. What that would do is make a situation where the tiles that are furthest out are going to be much more difficult, to maintain, your ownership of. Like, you can always go in and take it back, easily, because you're over, you have this huge federation that can just do that. But like your response time to that specific tile is going to be tough. What that does allow is it gives smaller factions or smaller alliances a way to do something, at least in like a harassment sort of thing. So like, their victory may only be that tile. They can't take down the entire federation, but they can make the federation have to work to maintain, rather than if it's
Yeah,
something
guerrilla
to be brought
tactics, they can
to.
always do that.
Yeah, exactly. But if the tiles are spaced such, or if the transportation or the travel requirement is such that the whole Federation fleet can reach any of their tiles at the moment of any initiation of whatever siege mechanic or conquest mechanic you're going to have on that tile, then it no longer makes sense to go after any Federation tiles, because their enforcement of every tile in their system is basically total.
Yeah, no, there's no instant warp like quantum slipstream to a tile that you own, or just so you can go defend it. You'll have probably a slipstream event to your homeworld, and then you have to fly 5 tiles out, which may be 5,000 kilometers, right? But each tile is pretty much a capture point, and your territory technically is your homeworld. So you would, if as long as you own your territory, you could slipstream to your homeworld and then point yourself to whatever capture point is under attack and go and assist. But you can't get there instantly. There's travel time. Even at warp 10, if you're traveling, I think each home territory is 6,000 kilometers. I think I put it in here as. So end to end 6,000. Earth is at the opposite end, which means you're traveling, say, maybe 5,000 kilometers. So 5,000 kilometers, even at warp 10, is what divided by 10? 500 seconds. It'll take you 8.3 minutes to get to like Earth to the outermost capture point. Roughly 8 point.
And to take a capture point, does it take less than that amount of time or more?
It takes potentially more because there's a temporary indestructible phase for 10 minutes, and then the battle begins. So basically, if you saw something was under siege or you actioned it immediately, you would probably arrive at the same time that the defense grid became targetable. And then you would basically have to fight the defense grid and whoever else came to help defend that defense grid.
I just want to say, as far as those ship classes and things go, like that does sound cool and everything. But the more that we had experience with PvP now, the more it's evident that even as is, you do kind of need specialized ships because they need to be a certain weight. Speed is a huge factor in PvP. So even as is, there is like you can't make a huge ship and just go fight with it. I'll just get out of your range, recharge my shields, then get back in range. You can't do nothing, and you can't chase me down.
Well, so
Mhm.
that's the point of the ship class system is that you can have classes that are specifically built to be fast. You know, so like the way that things are fought on the server now, and sometimes the meta shifts, you know, left and right a bit, but you end up with a meta of some kind. So a ship class system allows for at least not perfectly, if it were perfectly set up, you could have a ship class system that has a meta for each ship class, depending on what you're trying to do. So, like in those kinds of engagements, like you're talking about Survival Tom, when you know, where you're going head to head with maybe multiple ships or whatever, the ability to run off and recharge shields, that's what makes that ship type a meta right now. But if you have a ship class now that has a buff, say it's a destroyer, that is it gives it buffs in something, but the ability to chase down those fast ships and makes those fast ships good against the big hard heavy ships but bad against destroyers, for example. So it's more of a rock paper scissors rather than just a, you
Yeah.
know, who has the most refined meta for the entire server.
Right. So we would obviously have to adjust things. It's going to take a lot of balance to build a ship class system. The mod itself is there already and it works pretty well, but to balance the different classes, what they're going to have, what's their power outputs, all that kind of stuff is going to change things around. Yeah, but yeah, it's pretty cool mod. I'll put something together regarding classes, that we could talk about it as a community before we actually start, putting something together. Uh, but the ship class systems are definitely going to give an element of gameplay that make it interesting because you'll have people that are destroyers and have people that are just the escorts and whatever we else we're going to call them. We can even do mining ships. If you make your ship as considered a mining ship, you get extra drills and maybe a buff towards mining and stuff, right? But then you can't put as many weapons on it because it's a mining ship or something like that. So like there's so many different things we could do around that. Um, but yeah, that's the goal there.
You could do the same kind of thing for transports as well. Instead of throwing a couple of huge cargoes in your you know, meta battleship or whatever, that can take on anything 1v1. You know, if you have a like a cargo ship, maybe it gives you that some of that speed back, but like maybe it can't have any weapons at all or something. You could have
Yeah.
as many, that mod allows you to have as many ship, you know, grid classifications you want to have.
Yeah, you can make a ton. Whether or not you can adjust things like max speed, I don't think so. You can adjust things like power output. I could say, hey,
You can adjust max speed, and you can also adjust. You know how you have the kind of the weight penalties for your you know, for your max speed on server now.
yeah.
It's also built for that specifically as well, to be
Oh,
able to
okay.
allow different values for different
Yeah.
classes of ships.
Okay, good. So then I can get rid of the other mod we're using and just use this to replace that. I was worried that was going to conflict and it wouldn't work. But yeah. So, anyways, guys, long story short, that's the ideas that we're thinking about in the next iteration. Again, still early planning stages. Still a lot to do, not anytime soon. But I wanted to get your feedback on that, and just to discuss the different way of doing things that I think one will help protect new players, two will help keep people intrigued, and three help give people a sense of accomplishment by being able to like conquer the galaxy, um, or create treaties and conquer together, that kind of stuff. And then new elements of gameplay, like everyone wanted small grids, so we're going to try to make small grids more viable, and then
Oh, yeah.
have a small grid only planet that you have rover battles and stuff like that on. um, just different unique gameplay loops, and then have different rewards based on doing those challenges, that kind of stuff. And then bring in more single player fighting, so like actual running around as your player shooting a phaser rifle, shooting at stuff. If Nexus 3.0 2.0 global comes out before we implement this, then we can do even more cool shit. Like we can do scenarios where you board a Borg cube and there's like 1,000 drones that are coming after you, and you got to blow your way through them all and that kind of stuff. Like there's some cool stuff we can do when that comes out.
Nice.
But again,
Well,
if you
I
have
think it's a really
suggestions,
good
send
idea.
me a DM. Let me know your suggestions so I can keep track of them, and then continue working along. But yeah, like I said, this is just a feeler, and the only reason I'm even talking about this now is because we lost a lot of our people, and when I talked to them about their feedback, a lot of them had similar concerns where it was uh, the initial hype was broken by so many bugs, and uh, you know not having things to do. And at the end of the day, we added more and more organic combat, but there was still no sense of accomplishment of like, how do I win the game type thing, right? So that's why we put together this conquest system, which should resolve a lot of those main issues why the people end up leaving. So I think they will come back once we get this up and running.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I think it's will be very fun. It's just to be sure that people try to understand that it's not for now, but you're probably going to upgrade like 3.1, 3.2, and until 3.5. Because if you right now say that we're going to do that, you're going to lose everyone. People are going to wait for the
That's what's
3.5.
happened already. We know there's gonna be a wipe. So
Yeah, so it's like
yeah.
not it's
Well, we don't know there's
by
going to be a
step.
wipe. I discussed the options. I said it's either that we wipe and make another one, we run them concurrently, or we allow players to bring over something, or all their grids, or a certain amount of grids, or something of that sort. So, like, I haven't figured out how that transition is going to happen. But at the end of the day, right? Think of it logically, guys. Every server has a lifespan, right? So every day you play on any server is one day closer to that server being wiped and something new coming out. So
We
it's
don't say the quiet part out loud.
yeah. So it's not that knowing that, oh, there's a 4.0 is coming. Yeah, so is 5.0. So is 6.0, right? It's coming, but there's no date or anything in and around there
I
of
think you've
when.
already mentioned a solution to that though, Sarg, is basically giving people a reason to continue playing in the current version. And you've already suggested maybe being able to carry something over, if not everything. I think that if the reward to carry over, of something to carry over was significant enough to continuously work for, then I think that erring on the side of being able to bring too much over is better than erring on the side of, well, you guys will get, one extra PMC or something, like something like that. Like I'm
Mhm.
like that, because that's not enough to work for, say this takes 6 months,
Right.
8 months. That's not enough for me to work daily for 8 months just to get I don't give a shit about that. But if it was big enough that I could take, maybe 20% of my wealth with me, then I would continue accumulating wealth,
Right.
indefinitely, and I would keep
Yeah.
Yeah,
playing.
yeah. If we
I'll
can get that
I'll let
in
me
stone,
I
then
gotta
yeah.
figure out something that won't break the game for the next iteration by giving an extreme advantage to others.
Are you intending on having the ship class system ultimately in the next season?
Yes.
Then maybe make it faction based. For example, this is just an idea to throw in the hat. And then maybe you somehow come up with a way for factions to accumulate points or credits or tokens or something like that. And maybe the tokens are for some basic ship classes, like frigates or cruisers or whatever, so that when they start in, they already have a blueprinted, you already have a set of blueprinted ships themed to each of the alliances, so that the faction will receive their reward in here. Here are four tier 2 frigates, to start with, because of everything that you did to try and carry something over.
Yeah, we could do something like that. Let me. There'll be some sort of carryover or some sort of math involved where you do X things and you get X rewards in the next iteration, right? That will be some sort of, just to promote a continual gameplay on the current server. What that looks like exactly, I don't know. I have to give it some more thought. I would have thought sick and then figure that out. But there will be a reward. I can say that much. That for your time spent on S 3.0, for 3.54 or whatever we call it, you will get something that that is of value, not like you get a useless plushie that you could lose. There'll be something that you get. Um, yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds great.
All right. Well, I gotta go because I want to go to bed.
Yeah,
Before I.
no, man, you sound like you're
Thanks
dying.
again, man. Get better soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys, for joining. And again, just if you have ideas, flush them out, write them down, send them to me. No idea is a bad idea. Even if you send me an idea, it may trigger another idea in my head of how we could do that, right? So, if you want to be part of what the next iteration could be and how fun it could be, then please give me your ideas.
Sounds good.
All right.
Copy
Take
that.
it easy, guys. Have a good night. Thanks.